Hello. In this video, I will try to focus on how can we ensure the validation. Uh, when do we do the newspaper reading? Because when we usually start doing the newspaper reading, the perception is we need to make a notes from the newspapers. But the question is, what sort of notes are you making, and how do you are doing that extraction of those different news items that you are doing, and what is your perception, what approach you read the newspaper, because that will make the newspaper reading sort of interesting as compared if you just reading the newspaper and thinking I need to make some notes from it. But what that thing that you're looking for, that will make more sense, and then we'll start having a more better approach, comparatively better approach for newspaper reading. So my approach is always try to extract the validation aspect that you do for a mains answer writing. Because in the mains answer writing, there is an static portion. The static portion is usually we read from the static books that we have, that Lakshmikant and all the standards books with geography, history, environment. But the thing which makes our answer different from the people who are part of the coaching systems or who are doing the reading from the magazines that comes which basically covers and try to cover the all the news happenings that happen around that month or a year. So for having like the comparatively or comparative differential advantage from those people, I think the better approach is you start doing the newspaper reading, but with the proper purpose, that what is your purpose with which for with which you are approaching the newspaper. So my idea is that I always try to approach a newspaper from the value addition perspective that we do in the mains answer writing. Because in the mains answer writing, you will have a static portion that more or less covers the conceptual argument that you make. But for substantiating those arguments, I think if you start putting current examples that happened recently, then it will provide a real value to your answer, that you are basically able to connect your conceptual knowledge to the actual things that are happening in the nation or international levels. What is happening in the real life. And for each subject, like if within the GS there are different domains and disciplines, for each discipline there isn't differential approach to the approach a newspaper. Like suppose if you are having a GS1 and for history, I think there's a limited value addition that you can do from the newspaper reading. But for the geography and society and other GS disciplines, we can do substantial amount of extraction of this value addition from a newspaper. Like if I am approaching some geography answer which is talking about some cyclone or something. So I think cyclone or the hurricane, the different names that we have, the hurricane, Willy Willy or whatever, in different geographical regions. But when we start substantiating those answers, then it is always beneficial that you put an example which happened recently, and that will make your answer comparatively different, because it is not only about you are putting an example, but when you read the newspaper and do little bit more search about those events and disaster event that happens, then you will able to sort of connect with the recent example, connect with the conceptual and the recent happening that are going on. Like I can give you one example that there was one question on the urban floods, I think, when I wrote the mains in 2022 or 23, I'm not sure. Then there was a question of urban flood. Then for substantiating that answer, I gave the example that the Ahmedabad flood happened that time. And the reason for that Ahmedabad flood was the vortices that came back toward the eastern side because of the pressure difference created at the Gir region that there is there, and the Gujarat region. So and for the basic argumentation is it usually happens. It basically don't it does not happen usually. There are some exceptional cases, but the possibility is because we have one jet stream there that we read about, the tropical low level easterly jet stream. So That stream basically pushed that vortices towards India. So this is the real life argumentation that you can make in your answer, that will make your answer different from the people who are just expecting these value additions from a coaching institute. So they because then you start reading these things regularly, then you will be in a habit of extracting how it will be important in my different value addition disciplines. But the thing that is important here, that this validation, this aptitude of extracting this value from newspaper comes only when you parallelly do the answer writing as well. Because suppose you are just you don't write any answers on a regular basis for the practice, then you will not have that sense. Because when you do the right answer writing, you always feel that something is lacking in this answer. And when we do this regularly, then we start having the sense that this answer is lacking something, and I may find it from the newspaper. So that sense develops when we do the answer writing. Because if you would not do that answer writing, you will not have that sense of that something is lacking in my answer, and where I can find it. A newspaper is one newspaper by newspaper, even the current happenings that you may get from the YouTube or some there are different channels like down to earth YouTube channel, or even the magazine. So even the YouTube channel is enough for extracting those examples. Similarly, if suppose we are having a society answer, social issues answer. So during the Myanmar, even during the Manipur conflict that was happening, there wasn't one issue of the Mira Paibi community. So you can look into it, the how the Mira Paibi community handle these social issues, how they respond, how it is sort of providing the women empowerment aspect, and by connecting those examples, you can further substantiate it how even the informal grouping that happens in a society, it also has a societal impact, and it can ensure the reform even when where the formal organizations are failing or lacking. So such argumentation can come when you start reading a newspaper and start extracting the value. But for that, answer writing is also important, because if that will not happen parallelly, then you will not have that sense. Otherwise, you will just read the information, but you will not develop that sense. How would I use this information? And even the GS2 topics like constitution, polity, governance aspects. For that, though, we have quite a significant valuation that we can extract from the newspapers. Like different issues like governors tussle with the state government. We have numerous examples for it. In the Tamil Nadu case, even till recently, even the Delhi government differences with the governor or lieutenant governor. Similarly, the constitution, like if you have to write example regarding the parliamentary functioning or the parliamentary committees even. So we have an examples, recent examples where we are witnessing that usually what is the perception that parliamentary committees are usually away from the glare of a media and the cameras that monitor. That is from there comes the political games comes there, and then the politicians start playing to the media. But the parliamentary committees were seen that they are aloof of these political differences. But even there, now we are getting and reading some examples. That even there, there is a sense of difference, or the political differences are coming up, and they are coming up quite publicly. So that is the one thing. So that you can mention these examples with even when naming those MPs around which this news came. So that will make your answer more realistic, and you will have one differential point as compared to other people. Similarly, even during the parliamentary discussions, if there are questions that talk about the parliamentary democracy and all these things, so you can make an argument to how many days the parliament is functioning, the way the parliament is functioning, like who is getting a chance to speak, who is not getting a chance to speak. So that also makes a sense. But be very cautious. Don't be politically inclined toward these things. Try to have a rational argument. Try to have a balanced argumentation. But because what we do in answer, that we can make an argument, we usually when we write the answer we make a critical analysis. So we make argument for the case and against the case. So when you're making the answer, when you're making the argument for the case, then you can make then you can use one example, and when you are making the critical argument, you can use another example. Similarly, in the case of international relations as well, there is a substantial fodder that you can get from the newspapers, like the recent thing that is going on regarding the US-India trade deal. It is beneficial, it is not beneficial, but we can always have a rational argumentation. So you can read the static portion that you can get from the PIB website or MEA, that the guidelines that comes, that the differential points that comes, that what are the different aspects of a deal. Then for making the argumentation, you can make a that then you can utilize the arguments of a different editors. Like Ashok Gulati, we usually get we usually get the editorials regarding his opinion regarding the agriculture aspect. So we can always mention his name and what he has said regarding the exports of the India with respect to agriculture. India should open up regarding the India should try to liberalize the agriculture sector. So when you're making those arguments, use his name because he is well-known person in that field and he do a lot of research in this area. So that will provide a substantial answer. Even the opinions of the Harshvi Pant, he is from the ORF, the vice president, I think. So you can always use their lines as a quotes and substantiate your answer. And these are well-known personalities, so you can always uh, use them as a backing point that this is argumentation based on some substance. It is not my own perception of a thing, because we are not when you basically write the answer, you are not a scholars in that field. If you're a scholar, then you can make the argument. If you're not a scholar, then you are not able to make that argumentation. So you need someone to back that argument. Even for the scholars, they need a citation. So there's a different story. So now next come these are the aspects of the GS2. I have talked about GS1, the society and geography aspect you mentioned. And then the GS3, and the GS3 is significantly loaded with this current affairs. But what the mistake that I usually observe even while interacting with the people, that they rely too much on these current affair magazines and they think that that is the way to go with it. You can go with it. Suppose there are times when you're too much active and you're not able to read the newspaper. So you can rely on that for a month that you are not able to read the newspaper this month. But you cannot completely skip it. I would never advise because this is the thing, this is the way to integrate different GS topics as well. And I've already made a video that how newspaper sort of helps you to integrate different GS disciplines. So for economics, first the economic survey is quite important, then the discussions and argumentation, different opinions that comes regarding the economic survey, uh, uh, that provides that 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 argumentation that you can get from the newspaper. So in that way also it helps. Like suppose there is an opinion regarding regarding, suppose there is an opinion of the economic survey that GDP of the India is growing at a certain pace, but there is a counter argument as well. The GDP figure are conflict. GDP figures are sort of challenged. They are not actually getting the reality of the ground. So for making that argumentation, you cannot just put that argument in an answer. You need to have some rational person's opinion. But I'm emphasizing on the rational person opinion because there could be in political opinions as well. So you cannot use those opinions for substantiating your answer because these are biased opinions. So next, even for the environment and ecology, we have a static portion. A lot of you can get a lot of literature and all these things from the coaching institutes and whatever. But for making your answer different, there you can get the story from the from the newspaper, like the RA forest issue that happened a few years back regarding the metro shed in Mumbai and the RA forest issue. Similarly, even the ongoing different tussles that happens, like recent issues regarding the Aravallis and how the public institutions, Supreme Court, and the government and the different bodies that we have, how they responded. So this because this is well-known topic, because it was a well-known argument, so you could have got, you could get covered that these things get covered even in the current affair magazines. But suppose there are regular newspaper reports regarding the GMC that usually the current affair magazines don't cover. Okay, like there is a conflict of interest for the body who is providing authorization for public use or the testing of GMCs. That is an opinion. That is not an completely argumentation based on a rational viewpoint. So conflict of interest position you can always mention when you start critically analyzing those answers. So GM body I am forgetting the name of the body that GF, I think Genetic Engineering Approval Committee. So that body is having the conflict of interest because the same body, I think, sort of provide funding to these research institutes who basically test and try to test these GM seeds. So there comes the conflict of interest aspect. And now for the science and tech, usually questions are from around current affairs, so it will have big. But I think for science and tech, relying on the newspaper is little bit dicey because newspaper like Hindu and newspaper covers a too much technical science and tech portion as well. So for that, I think you can also to certain extent rely on the current affair magazines because extracting those because of we all do not have a science background. Some of us, majority of us, have a humanities background. So for extracting those value from the newspaper article will be maybe difficult. So better approach is try to rely on that if you want to rely on the current affair magazine for it. And next that comes the GS4, the ethics aspect. So I always try to recommend that you should see the copy of Shruti Sharma ma'am, the AIR one few years back. There you will get the sense that how she beautifully extracted those values from the newspaper. Because the examples she used to mention, you will not get those examples from this the all the structured notes that you get from coaching institutes. So that can only happen when you start putting that effort, when you are doing the answer writing of ethics regularly. Then you will have that sense that I need some examples who are different from the regular examples that people mention. Because you will see a lot of examples, like whenever you have to provide the professional aspect, you will pull the example of a TN session, or or there are well-known different IAS officers and IPS officers that we usually start putting their names regularly. So that will not make your answer very different. So for having that differential advantage, try to extract those things from the newspaper. But it will not happen because I am telling from my experience, if you will not write the answers of the ethics regularly, you will not be able to realize the things that you are lacking. Because whenever you do the answer writing, after doing the answer writing, you usually have a this sense of reality check that answer is not good, and you have that reason, and it is not good, and you know the reason because you're not having that differential advantage that you want to make. And but by regular newspaper reading you develop that sense it is giving me something that will be useful for my answer. So for ethics I think it is really good because even when I used to read the international relations uh, editorials and articles, i I started getting the sense that these articles can also be used for ethics answer. Like you can see the hypocrisy of a West when they are judging the Russia Ukraine war and the Israel and Gaza war. You can witness the hypocrisy of a West when they talk about the democracy, equality, and the representation of all, and the condition of a UN system, the UNSC, where nobody is, no country from the South, global South, is significantly represented. So you can always mention these examples, even the climate change issue. The polluters-based principle have an ethical dimension to it. And what sort of argumentation that US administration is making that reflects, and even then sometimes we get a chance in an essay as well, the capitalism and socialism can always mention the attitude that USA's attitude. It They usually make argument the party system or Democrats, they're Democrats and Republicans are different, but whether they're Democrats or Republicans, their perception and actual actionable effort regarding the climate change is more or less the same. They even during the sort of the Kyoto Protocol, whether it is Paris Agreement, and now Trump has just ripped off, I think, everything that could have been done regarding the climate change. So that sort of gives you a sense that how we can analyze the same situation that we're analyzing for international relations answer. We can also have that answer for ethics. But at the end, I again emphasize it will only happen when you will have that capacity or consistency to write the mains answer regularly. Otherwise, it will be very difficult thing. You will end up collecting all the things because that sense of taking out, because you start getting your own capacity or a way of answer writing. So then you will get the sense I would be able to remember this thing and I will not be able to remember this example. So then you will be picking up the example that suits your caliber, your attitude, your approach. So in that way also it helps. So try to include that, and I think this interaction will be helpful for you to a certain extent. And I told you that I will make a video on a geography, but it is little bit is comparatively I need to think a lot. So based on the time I will get, I will try to make it. Okay, but I have few more suggestions that I've got. I will try to include that in few videos. Like, uh, so I will cover that in when I will get a chance. So okay, so because I declare things and then it does not happen, it does not look good. So let's see. Okay.